You never thought that an ordinary business trip could so drastically change my life. But that's exactly what happened when our company sent a group of employees, including myself and my mother-in-law Olivia, to a conference in New York. Olivia had been working in our firm for many years, and we had always maintained a warm but strictly familial relationship. She was the mother of my wife Emma, and I treated her with respect and affection, but nothing more. However, during our flight together, something imperceptibly changed. Olivia and I found ourselves seated next to each other and began to chat casually about various topics. It turned out that we had much more in common than I thought. We loved the same books, movies, shared stories from our travels and childhood years. Olivia recounted amusing anecdotes from her youth, and I couldn't help but admire her lively facial expressions, the sparkle in her eyes, her melodic laughter. For the first time in a long while, I saw her not just as a mother-in-law, but as an interesting, attractive woman. Without realizing it, Olivia had touched some secret chord in my soul with her sincere and witty stories. I suddenly wanted to get to know her better, to share my own thoughts and feelings. The atmosphere in the plane cabin seemed to be charged with an invisible electricity between us. When the announcement was made about the imminent landing, I felt a slight pang of regret. Our conversation had come to an end, and ahead of us lay a hectic week in New York. Meetings, presentations, negotiations. I was sure that this magical sense of closeness and understanding with Olivia would dissipate as soon as the wheels touched the runway. But I was mistaken. This was only the beginning of the unexpected and exciting events that would forever change our relationship and my life. Ahead of us lay something that I could not even imagine in my wildest fantasies. New York greeted us with heavy rain and gusty winds. When we reached the hotel, it turned out that the bad weather had thrown all plans into disarray. Many flights were canceled or delayed, and there was a real transportation collapse in the city. Our conference was also under threat of cancellation. The organizers informed us that due to the storm, most of the speakers had not been able to arrive on time, and the event was being postponed for several days. We were stuck in the hotel for an indefinite period. In the evening, tired of endless phone calls and attempts to rebook return tickets, I went down to the hotel bar. It was surprisingly empty. Apparently, other guests preferred to stay holed up in their rooms. I ordered a non-alcoholic mojito and settled at a table by the window, watching the raindrops streaming down the glass. A few minutes later, Olivia entered the bar. She looked a little tired and disoriented, but still stunningly elegant in her business suit. Noticing me, she smiled and headed towards my table. "Looks like you and I are the only ones who dared to venture out of our rooms in this weather," she remarked, sitting down across from me. I smiled back. Olivia's presence was strangely both calming and exciting at the same time. "Yeah, no one expected this force majeure, but I'm glad you and I haven't lost each other in all this commotion." We ordered some snacks and continued the leisurely conversation we had begun on the plane. Outside, the storm was raging, but here, in the cozy semi-darkness of the bar, we seemed to have found ourselves in our own little world, a world of heartfelt conversations, meaningful glances, and a gradually growing attraction. I don't know at what point our conversation turned to personal topics. I think I started talking about my failed marriage, about how my wife and I had drifted apart, becoming strangers under the same roof. And then Olivia suddenly shared her own story, a story of loneliness and disappointment that I could never have imagined before. And so we sat there, leaning towards each other across the table, with playful sparks dancing in Olivia's eyes and her hand casually touching mine. I felt like I was being drawn into a maelstrom of emotions that I couldn't cope with, but I had neither the strength nor the desire to resist this infatuation. We stayed in the bar until late, not noticing how time flew by. With each passing minute, our conversation became more frank and personal. Olivia talked about her unfulfilled dreams and disappointments, about how her marriage to Emma's father had gradually turned into a routine and become loathsome. "I always dreamed of traveling, seeing the world," she confessed with a sad smile. "But first, there were the children, then work, then it became too late. And here I am in New York, for the first time in many years, but for some reason, I'm not happy about it at all." Her words resonated within me with an unexpected wave of empathy. I knew all too well what it was like to give up on your own desires, to live someone else's life, gradually losing yourself. And now, looking at Olivia, so vulnerable and sad, I suddenly felt an acute desire to support her, to comfort her, to tell her that not all was lost yet. I don't know how it happened, but at some point our hands touched and intertwined. This contact sent an electric shock through my veins. I looked up and met Olivia's gaze. In her pupils danced the same crazy, uncontrollable flame that I was sure was blazing in my eyes too. Without saying a word, driven by the same impulse, we simultaneously leaned forward. Our faces were so close that I could see every freckle on Olivia's nose, every wrinkle at the corners of her lips. And then those lips pressed against mine, and reality ceased to exist. It was a completely irrational, crazy thing to do. We kissed passionately, greedily, like people starved for affection. I buried my fingers in Olivia's hair, pulling her even closer to me, and she wrapped her arms around my neck in response. On the periphery of my consciousness, there was an anxious thought that we might be seen, but I brushed it off like an annoying fly. However, when Olivia's hand slid over my thigh, something inside me clicked. I pulled away, breathing heavily and trying to regain my composure. "Olivia, wait, we can't. This is wrong." Hurt flashed in her eyes, but she immediately pulled herself together. Moving away, Olivia smoothed her crumpled blouse and fixed her hair. "You're right. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. I guess it's the fatigue and stress from all these delays." Her voice sounded calm, but I could see her fingers trembling as she raised a glass of water to her lips. I myself felt this trembling all over my body, as if I had a fever. "Let's just forget about this, okay?" I suggested, trying to keep my tone casual. "It was a momentary weakness, nothing more." Olivia nodded and smiled tightly. We said our goodbyes and went to our respective rooms, carefully avoiding eye contact. But even when I was left alone, I couldn't calm down. My body burned from Olivia's touches, my lips tingled from kisses, and one single thought pounded in my head. What have I done? The next few days, Olivia and I hardly saw each other. I immersed myself in work, trying to forget and not think about what had happened. But as soon as I was alone with myself, memories of that evening would come crashing down on me like an avalanche. I understood that I should stay away from Olivia, that our kiss was a mistake, a momentary weakness. But some irrational part of me longed for a repetition, wanted to feel her lips on mine again, her body next to mine. Finally, on the 4th day of our forced confinement in the hotel, the conference did take place after all. But even during business meetings and presentations, I kept catching Olivia's glances, pensive, studying, full of some hidden fire. In the evening, when everyone had retired to their rooms, I discovered that I had forgotten my daily planner in the conference room. Returning for it, I found Olivia there. She was sitting in an armchair, with her legs crossed, thoughtfully looking out the window. "Ethan?" she startled, seeing me. "What are you doing here so late?" "Oh, I forgot my planner." I awkwardly waved a hand with the notebook. "What about you? Why aren't you sleeping?" Olivia shrugged and smirked. "Just can't sleep for some reason. I keep thinking about what happened between us then, at the bar." I swallowed, feeling my heart start racing. Here it was, the moment of truth. Now she would say that it was a mistake, that we'd better pretend nothing happened. But Olivia suddenly rose from her chair and slowly, as if giving me a chance to run away, approached me closely. Her pupils were dilated, her breathing rapid and intermittent. "Ethan," she whispered, looking me straight in the eye, "I don't want to pretend that there's nothing between us. It may be wrong, but I want you. Right now." Time stood still. The tension that had been building up inside me all these days suddenly reached a peak and broke through the dam. Making some inarticulate sound, I grabbed Olivia by the waist and pulled her to me, kissing her passionately and hungrily. What happened next was like a haze. I think we were kissing and tearing off each other's clothes right there in the conference room, risking being caught at any moment, and then somehow miraculously made it to my room, where we fell onto the bed, our naked bodies entwining. I was as if in a fever, intoxicated by Olivia's closeness, her scent, her moans at the moment of ultimate pleasure. The whole world ceased to exist. There were only the two of us, dissolved in each other, forgetting everything in the world. Only later, lying next to Olivia and trying to catch my breath, I began to realize the full horror of what had happened. God, what have I done? How could I have slept with my own mother-in-law, the mother of my wife? This is not just wrong. It's a real betrayal, a stab in the back to everyone I love. Olivia, as if sensing my turmoil, propped herself up on her elbow and looked me in the eye. Her gaze was serious and a little sad. Ethan, I know what you're thinking right now. Believe me, this is not easy for me either. I didn't want to ruin your marriage to Emma or cause pain to our family. But what happened between us? I can't and don't want to deny it. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump rising in my throat. So what do we do now? Pretend that nothing happened, or tell everyone about it and live with the guilt? Olivia sighed and shook her head. Neither. We did a terrible thing, that's true. But I don't believe that confessing will make the situation any better. Rather, it will only destroy what little good we have left. The only way out that I see is to keep what happened a secret and move on as if nothing had occurred. I chuckled mirthlessly. Easy to say, move on. As if you can just take and erase this night, these blinding sensations of closeness and unity from your memory. But deep down, I understood that Olivia was right. We had no other choice. The conference ended, and it was time to return home. Olivia and I behaved pointedly, politely, and amicably, carefully avoiding the slightest hint that something had changed between us. Only sometimes I would catch her long, pensive gaze on me, and at such moments I would feel a rush of heat from the mere memories alone. Emma met us at the airport, joyful, having missed us, suspecting nothing. Looking into her shining eyes, I felt like the worst scoundrel. How could I have so deceitfully betrayed her trust? And for what? For a fleeting flash of passion that brought only guilt and shame. But what's done is done. Now I had to live with this burden, carefully hiding my shameful secret from my beloved wife and everyone around me. I understood that my relationship with Olivia would never be the same again. Too much had happened. We had looked too deeply into each other's souls. But for the sake of preserving the family, I was ready to pretend and act as if nothing had changed. At first, it was not easy. Every time I met Olivia at family dinners or holidays, I experienced an excruciating awkwardness. Our eyes would meet, and sparks would seem to fly in the air from unspoken words and restrained desires. But we both stubbornly pretended not to notice anything, and gradually this game became almost habitual for us. Months passed, turning into years. Emma and I were still together, raising children, making plans for the future. I tried to be an exemplary husband and father, devoting all my time and energy to my family. Only rarely, in moments of weakness, did I allow myself to immerse in memories of that crazy night with Olivia. But then I would immediately drive away the unwanted thoughts, feeling my cheeks burning with shame. Perhaps it was impossible to forget what happened. That passion, that feeling of absolute closeness with another person, such things are not erased from memory, no matter how hard you try. Sometimes it seemed to me that my affair with Olivia was just a dream, generated by a sick imagination. But as soon as we were left alone for even a moment, the tension would immediately hang in the air, testifying that it was all real. I knew that it was also difficult for Olivia to maintain our involuntary deception. There were days when she looked depressed and withdrawn, avoiding looking me in the eye. At such moments, I wanted to hug her, comfort her, tell her that I remembered everything and shared her pain. But I had no right to do that. The price was too high. And yet, despite the guilt and fear of exposure, I couldn't make myself regret what had happened. Yes, it was wrong. Yes, we had committed a terrible act. But those moments of frankness, those blinding sensations on the edge of insanity, they were worth all the pangs of conscience. I will carry this secret within me until the end of my days, cherishing it and at the same time dreading it, because it is a part of me, a part of my story. Of course, I had no intention of repeating my experience with Olivia. One mistake was more than enough. I was firmly resolved never to betray Emma again, never to succumb to temptation, no matter how strong it might be. My family and my loyalty, that's what is truly valuable and unshakable. But deep in my soul, I will forever keep the memory of that night. The night when I briefly touched something real, wild, primal, that passion that slumbers in each of us, waiting for its hour. And although I do not intend to awaken it again, the very knowledge that it exists makes the colors of life a little brighter. It's scary to think what we are capable of when we cast off the shackles of morality and duty. And at the same time, isn't this what true freedom is all about? Forgive me, Emma. Forgive me, Olivia. You are both my light and my darkness, two halves of my torn soul. I love you and hate myself for my weakness. But this is who I am, imperfect, contradictory, always balancing on the edge between the desirable and the proper. Maybe one day I will tell you this story, or I will take it with me to the grave, preserving our family and our fragile happiness. Time will tell. But for now, I can only live on, carrying my cross and keeping my secrets, like all of us, in this complex, crazy, amazing world. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.